Guys, today I have a very interesting guest with me, and he's a very amazing non-dual teacher, and I have many questions regarding this very particular subject, non-duality, Advaita, whatever. But today we are going to be pursuing truth. And I think the biggest question I have is in Buddhism, the first noble truth, they say life is suffering, right?
Mhm.
So would you agree with that, or do you think maybe it's not all suffering?
No, I don't. I don't have like a philosophical point of view about life being suffering or not suffering.
Mhm.
I see life as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for contemplation. It's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for understanding. And it's also, life is also a playground. It's also a realm where we meet and we celebrate creativity. We celebrate um, intelligence, wisdom, friendship, love. So that's, I don't see, I don't adapt to the Buddhist principle that life is suffering. I think that's too
Yeah.
that's too morose.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is the second and the third noble truth. I think the entire thing is one noble truth and four facets of a truth. I feel the Buddhist truth they
Mhm.
evolved. But the second one says it's caused by ignorance, which
Is
is
what?
it's caused by ignorance. So suffering is caused by
Uh-huh.
ignorance, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I think there is no denial that in our life we all experience challenges and also all sorts of negative emotions. Unhappiness, we
Yeah.
experience unhappiness, and when we explore, and this is one of my interests, when we explore the process of unhappiness, we may come to the understanding that unhappiness is an add-on. It's a result of the belief, a false belief that that I am a separate entity, that I exist in time and space. Now, yeah, I refer to that as ignorance. Ignorance basically being a word used to signify the veiling of truth, the veiling of our true nature, being ignorant of the piece of being. Now, the belief that I am a limited entity existing in time and space is the root cause of unhappiness. It's true that the body mind exists in time and space. Thoughts exist in time and space. The body is born at a certain point in time and dies at another point in time. It's born in a certain location, etc. That is true of the body, and it's true of the realm of phenomena. But it is not true of when you come to I. I, in the lingo of non-duality, I refers to reality. I refers to consciousness, not to the body mind. So yes, I agree with that principle that that unhappiness is the result of ignorance.
Okay, so let's explore this a little bit more, because you have thrown some terms which does not have a uniform definition. Let me put it that way. For example, so let's say ignorance is caused by a belief. All right. Now, when you say a belief, what is a belief? Is a definition a belief? As in, does the belief that you're using have a bias towards it being ignorance? Because you said belief, ignorance is caused by belief.
Yes.
But not, okay, go on.
Well, are beliefs that pertain to phenomenal events or phenomenal experiences, and there are beliefs that apply to consciousness. Now,
Mm.
the belief about phenomenal events is a thought that can be verified, that can be experientially tested. If you, for example, you believe that you left your keys on the kitchen table, you believe that and you feel that as well. It's very easy for you to confirm whether this belief is substantiated by a fact, or whether this belief is actually not substantiated by any evidence. So you take a walk to the kitchen and you take a look on the kitchen table. If you find the keys on the kitchen table, that belief is no longer a belief, it's a fact. It's a fact now. But on the other hand, if you walk into the kitchen and you don't find the keys on the kitchen table, now you have an investigation that's going on. Now there is an understanding that, wait a minute, I believed, in other words, there was a thought appearing to me that the keys were on the kitchen table, but that thought was not substantiated by any evidence. So in terms of beliefs about the world, about politics, about our partners, about beliefs about our body, all sorts of beliefs about phenomena, they are thoughts that more or less can be, in some cases, maybe not immediately, but can be verified. They're verifiable. Now, when we talk about unhappiness and ignorance, we are talking about beliefs about consciousness, meaning beliefs about reality. So there is a belief, a particular belief. Now we're going into the Advaitic teaching, the particular belief that I am a body mind, that I am a limited personal self, that I am a man, I am a woman. Now, before we proceed any further, I need to clarify what I mean when I say the word I, because I'm very clear and very, very consistent in how I use the term I. I use the term I to refer to whatever it is that in this actual moment truly perceives this perception. Whatever it is that perceives right now, I refer to as I. I am not saying it is a male, a female, a big. I'm not describing it in any way because I don't have any way of describing it, but yet it is undeniable that there is a perception and there is something that perceives. Whatever it is that perceives, I refer to as I, or I refer to as awareness or consciousness. So having defined the term I in a very specific way, the ignorance or the belief that I, meaning this, whatever it is that perceives this perception, whatever it is that is right now aware of this perception, the belief that this I is dependent on the body mind. In other words, it is a product of the brain or the product of Big Bang or is located, inside the brain. That belief needs to be investigated and inquired and looked into.
Yeah.
And if you do look into that belief, you may be surprised in that you may find that you don't have any evidence that supports this belief.
Yeah. So let's back up a bit here, because we are jumping a little bit too fast, I feel. So let's go a little bit step by step. So let's investigate a little bit further on a belief, because you said two things about a belief. You have a belief, right? And then you have a fact, right?
Yes.
That's one point. And another point is that I just left my mind. Okay, but we'll just talk about this. So the problem with a belief, let's say if I believe that if I believe that my keys is on the kitchen table, let's say, I'm believing that belief with a certainty, you would say, right?
Yes.
This is a, and that certainty has a quality of truth to it, right? And the same quality of truth that even fact has. Okay.
That's what?
That even a fact has the
Yes.
same quality of truth as a belief, which is what makes a belief believable in the first place, right?
Yeah, you could say that both a belief and a fact have an element of truth in them, except that in the case of a fact, the element of truth is substantiated experientially, while when it comes to the belief, the element of truth is unsubstantiated. It's still at the mental level, at the mental and feeling level, but has not been substantiated experientially.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more, because I feel this is the mechanism that traps us in the first place, right? Because now we are using the metrics as experiential. Right? You said you have to validate it experientially. So let's say even if I go and say, the keys are there on the kitchen table, there is still stuff I'm believing, saying there's this keys, I'm looking at this keys and this keys is here. You're making all this, I would still say beliefs, right? So both of them have the same quality of truth, but
in the case, yes, I'm sorry. In the case of the belief that the keys are on the kitchen table, that's a belief that has to do with the location of the keys, where the keys are. Now, you are jumping and talking about the belief that there is a personal self that is perceiving the keys on the table. Is that what you're doing? Is this what you're doing right now?
Yeah, because I'm saying for you to even have the belief of saying a locational belief, there's a keys on the kitchen table and I have to verify it. I have to still buy into some belief saying that there is a frame, I have a car, and there's keys.
No,
right?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Right now, you perceive this perception, right?
Yeah.
There may be a belief that which perceives this perception is in the living room or in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But that apart, the fact that you perceive right now is not a belief.
Yeah.
There is an experiential aspect to perception. The I, that which truly perceives, is not a concept, it's not a belief. It's experientially validated moment by moment.
Yeah.
So I cannot agree that when you perceive the keys on the kitchen table or not, that simultaneously there is a belief that I perceive. I perceive is not a belief. It's substantiated by my very experience right now.
Yeah, but when I'm perceiving the keys, I'm not perceiving the keys in the sense of I'm a non-localized entity walking here searching for my keys. I very much have the perception of I'm a localized entity. I'm a guy called Prem.
Yes.
I'm inside this, and I'm here. Here are my keys.
Yes.
So,
I get it now. Now you're talking about the ongoing belief that's I talked about
like
yesterday.
onion layers of beliefs. Yeah.
That's sort of behind the curtain, the belief that is somehow, in a way, one could say below the radar, that I am this personal, local entity, maybe located in the brain or behind the eyes or whatever. Yes, that belief is the core focus, the focus of the inquiry in Advaita.
Okay, this is interesting because if you agree with me here, then what that implies is the quality of a fact, the experiential quality of a fact if I'm perceiving a fact, and if I'm noticing the quality of the experience, like literally, like experientially, and if I'm noticing the quality of belief, there wouldn't be a difference, at least in my experience, because even the fact is not pure fact, it's still mixed in with the beliefs, is what I'm saying. So experientially, how are you making a distinction between a belief and a fact when when what you're saying is a fact also has underlying beliefs fueling the fact?
Yes. The distinction between a belief and a fact is that the fact, when you go to the fact and again and again and again, you will always find it. But when you go to the belief, you will always find the belief, but there will be questions around this belief. There is a certain unwavering aspect to a fact, while there are certain degree of doubt and uncertainty when it comes to a belief. So a belief needs to be maintained while a fact maintains itself.
Interesting. So now we could even say, because the same qualities also apply to truth and falsehood, right? So basically saying a fact is a truth, whereas a belief is almost like you're buying into a falsehood, because a falsehood is something you have to maintain, right? Like lies is something you have to maintain. But
yes.
but like a sun rises from the east is something that maintains itself, like a sun rising from the east.
Right. Absolutely. The truth is self-maintaining. It's its own evidence. It stands on its own. It does not need any support. It stands on its own. While a belief there is doubts around it, and it needs to be propped up. It needs to be propped up by a body of thoughts or feelings or preferences, arguments. And this it's fascinating, because in the process of inquiry into the belief that consciousness is personal and limited, we actually look at all these support structures, and we sort of see, oh, well, this support structure is really not a real support structure, and this one is not, and this one eventually is sort of a process of dismantling, in a way, of the web of so-called structures that support the belief. And then you will find that at some point there isn't any longer a structure supporting the belief, and you find that the belief is sort of dissolved in your inquiry.
So you're saying, so you're saying the reason belief masquerades as a fact is because it takes on the illusion of certainty.
Yes, it takes on the illusion of certainty, but this certainty needs to constantly be, you have to keep supporting, keep propping it up. You have to keep presenting arguments that maintain the belief.
So that's why that's the connection between ignorance and belief, because you have to ignore certain aspects of reality to maintain this belief, is what you're saying?
You have to ignore not certain aspect of reality. You have to ignore that the falsehood of the props. In other words, you have to ignore the falsehood of the support structures. It's like a magician. A magician distracts you this way, but while he's performing the magic with the left hand, it distracts you with the right hand. So we need to see that these distractions, are not really what the magician is doing. What the magician is doing is sort of distracting you.
Okay, it's interesting you say that, because I actually used to do magic. So I understand exactly what you're saying. But right now you brought up a very good point, which is like I think the next step here. So we understand belief now. Belief masquerades as a fact or as a truth by taking on the illusion of certainty and maintaining that certainty by certain mental gymnastics, you might say.
Yes.
Right. Now I
mental
think,
and mental, and more than mental, emotional
okay, emotional.
gymnastics. As this is a very important point,
Yeah.
because we may come to the understanding, oh, wait a minute, these are mental gymnastics, but we may still feel separate. Anyways, just wanted to bring that point
Yeah.
up. It's not
Very,
strictly mental.
okay. But just like a magician, for me to like fool you that there's nothing in this hand, I should be doing something with this hand, right? So what I'm doing right now is I'm diverting your attention to look here, whereas
Yes,
I'm actually doing something here. So there's
yes,
a quality of attention that is going into this entire process. If you notice, your
yes,
attention focus, you might say, and
yes,
it's almost like a torchlight. I feel you're looking at something, but there's everything outside the beam of the torchlight that's still dark, right? Uh, so I think that's very important to address now. Of how are you? First of all, what is the quality of attention that you're bringing on to this inquiry process? That's
yes,
number one.
yes,
Number two is how are you using these questions or this inquiry to almost flow your attention to almost remove the certainty from the belief, because what you're essentially doing is using attention to question the certainty that you were certain about, right?
yes, yes,
A belief has a certainty, then you're thinking, oh wait, is it really like this? You're
yes,
actually questioning it, right?
yes, right, right. So, in first of all, is what's key, what's primordial in this process is that there is an interest, that we are both interested in looking and inquiring, in sort of diving into the philosophy of consciousness. So that's assuming that that's on board. There is an availability. Already there is an availability. Because an interest means there is a certain degree of openness. So when there is a certain degree of openness, the invitation is to use your reasoning capacity. We are all endowed with reasoning capacity. Now, the reasoning, we do a lot of reasoning in life about all sorts of things, in works and relationship, etc. But I'm talking about a particular reasoning here that applies to, that is turning its attention towards consciousness, towards truth, towards reality. So we have the capacity of reasoning. This is what Atmananda Menon, used to refer to as a higher reasoning. So we invite each other to focus our attention using the process of reasoning to investigate the belief that I, meaning the reality which perceives right now, is limited and dependent on the body-mind. So there is a process of reasoning, and the teachers, the teacher who's basically a friend, a guide, shares a variety of tools depending on the particular conversation that's going on at the moment, to direct the attention towards the inquiry into that belief.
Okay, it's good. It's good. The
There
interest.
were two
No,
aspects to your question. There was another question. I'm not sure that I
too much. Yeah. So you answer the second one. So the first one is how would you describe the quality of attention that you're using into this process?
Yeah,
The quality of
attention is the quality of love, meaning it is an attention that is not focused on any object, and that is not focused on any personal gain. So it's a quality of, it's sort of like a selfless attention, an attention that is driven by love. Like, for example, a musician, somebody who really loves to play the violin, their attention may be focused on getting the better notes or holding the instrument in a certain way, or stroking the instrument in a certain way. But the quality of this attention is the love for music.
So interest would and that's why you mentioned interest, because interest is almost like a child of love, almost like
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There is a certain,
Okay.
especially an interest that is not looking for a personal gain. It's an interest that's sort of coming through you, but it's not coming from you and for you. It's coming through you, and it has a quality of love and the childlike innocence.
I think that's very important distinction I think they're making here, because normally when someone places a attention on something, it's very selfish in nature, I feel. How can this help me, right? I think that's how many people get into non-duality in the first place.
Yeah.
We are seeking a certain outcome, right? Which is, I
Yeah,
think, selfish in nature in the
but
first place.
it's okay to start with,
Yeah,
because we start wherever we are. I mean,
yeah,
we're suffering, for example, and we want to bring it into our suffering or whatever.
yeah.
Um, but that's not where we end up along the path, especially if we're moving in the right direction with the right guidance and the right understanding.
Yeah.
Then that, although we start from personal seeking aspect, it all of that relaxes, and then we find ourselves no longer, we become truth lovers, just loving truth for its own sake,
Okay.
not
Okay.
for a personal sake.
Okay. That's nice. But now I agree with you completely. But now what I'm really trying to ask is here, when I'm doing inquiry and you're doing inquiry into such deep levels, I feel it's not just you're dealing with the fact of the sensory perceptions. You're also dealing with ego trying to protect itself from maintaining this illusion, right? And I think it has many ways to do that. Rationalizing, paranoia. It can reward you for not doing this, right? There's so ego has many ways to make sure that you don't do this.
Yes.
Okay. Or let's say I'm suffering. It is, forget about non-duality, it's very hard for a person to even take a blame on themselves, thinking, oh, maybe it is really my fault here. But when we are looking outside, we think it's the other person's fault, right? So there's
Yeah.
like a misdirected attention that is going on. One
Yeah.
might say, if you have to like put it in the context of self-inquiry, rather than putting attention within. So when I do it, why should I be interested in looking at myself when I can keep blaming someone else?
Well, because it doesn't really deliver the goods. I mean, you can blame yourself, or you can blame somebody else. You can deny, you can try to think your way away, you can use substances, you can
Yeah.
travel around the world to run away from yourself or from your unhappiness, but it doesn't work. Because it doesn't work. I mean, it's a certain maturity. You have to come to the understanding that it doesn't work, because otherwise, if you don't have that maturity, well, that process is going to go on and on. You're going to keep on blaming your cousin, your mother, your grandfather, whatever, and you're going to keep on blaming your government and denying and avoiding.
Sure.
Yeah, of course, there is a certain maturity that is required at some point in time for you to sort of see that this process of psychological avoidance and psychological protection of the illusory me, that this process is no longer a process that is valid. You have to come to that understanding and wisen up in a way and assume your understanding. And in the absence of that understanding, the process of avoidance and blaming goes on and on.
Okay. So would you say that, let's say I'm blaming someone, let's say I'm blaming a person X for something, the quality of attention that I'm using to blame this person is not the same quality of attention that you're using to self-inquire? Would that
Absolutely.
be?
I wouldn't even say there's a quality of attention. I would say that it's more a repeat performance, sort of like a trigger mechanism. It's like something triggers you, and there isn't even, well, one could say the attention is upon the defense mechanism. Automatically, they've already been so repeated. The blaming, the accusing, the avoiding processes are already so, these tracks are so rehearsed. They're so well ingrained that it's a trigger mechanism. I won't even use the term attention in any significant way here. I would say that we're in the bubble, in the me bubble, where we're just experiencing the good old sense of threat, something lacking, something is at risk. And we're defending our imaginary self in whichever way, in the many ways that we have already rehearsed and learned and repeated over and over, trying to defend the illusory sense of me. Yeah, the quality of attention is completely different, because there is no space that is available for the new, to look in a fresh way, to inquire in a new way, to sort of like lift the rock and see what's beneath the rock, or move the pebbles to see what's hidden there. There isn't that quality of that spaciousness. The deck is loaded, and when we are in a reactive process, then all there is the sense of threat, and the defense mechanism. Now, to the degree to which there is some space on the stage for some other possibility, the degree to which there is this sort of space, there is an opportunity to explore other ways of being in that situation besides being reactive and defensive.
Interesting. Have you read this book called Man's Search for Meaning by any chance?
No.
Okay. It's a guy called Viktor Frankl. He wrote it. He's actually a psychologist. He was interviewing a lot of Holocaust people to just understand what motivated them to survive when literally all the circumstances were like dire. You had like no reason itself, just suffering. When you look ahead, just suffering, then what motivated you to like still live on and push through? He was inquiring that.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's a very good book. In that, he says there is like stimulus and response, stimulus being the thing and responding to it. And he says between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. And he says it's in this space that you have the power to do anything.
Yes. Interesting. I like that. That sounds good. I would say that this space is the space of awareness or consciousness, because we're not, in terms of survival, we're not so concerned about the survival of the flesh and the meat and the 160, 70 pounds of flesh. That's not what we're concerned about. In terms of the survival, we're interested in the survival of my survival, not the survival of the body. There's a confusion about that. Our biggest interest is in consciousness. It's not so much in the body, it's in consciousness. But because we confuse consciousness to be the body, we therefore confuse our interest in survival as being the survival of the body. In fact, our interest is in the survival of consciousness. My friend, teacher Francis Lucille often used to say, if somebody gave you a choice of having a body forever, without consciousness, or having consciousness without a body, which one would you choose?
I would choose the one without the body. Yeah,
absolutely. We would all choose consciousness. So in fact, our survival interest is misunderstood. There is a misunderstanding that we believe that survival has to do with the body, mind, or with the organism. In fact, it's about consciousness. It's always about consciousness.
So basically saying, whenever we are blaming someone or whenever you're reacting to something, the space is literally like this much. There's almost no space. But in this process, I think in the non-dual inquiry, I think the first step here is you're creating the space by just observing and giving that quality of attention that you were talking about, which has a love, interest, and just watching yourself go through. And having like a space between the stimulus and response, like literally time.
Absolutely. There is a certain maturity in seeing that this process isn't a happy process. That in fact the happiness is when there is this space. You know, we there is a certain understanding that the happiness isn't, you know, when there is a me and a you and a reaction to my emotions and trying to project my emotions onto you. At some point we see that this process doesn't work, that the process that works is this process, the openness. And the more there is space between I wouldn't say between, the more there is spaciousness in your experience, the more there is openness, the more there is not knowing or a certain vulnerability or a certain availability, the more you find that life is like a flow, is a happier flow, a smoother flow.
Okay. So how do you cultivate the space? I think that's a fair question, because I think the process that you're addressing here is happening within the space, not after, not before. Within the space of stimulus and a response is where you're doing this entire self-inquiry process, right? So,
yeah, well, I'm not sure if I understood your question correctly. The way you assess the space, meaning the peace, the causeless peace, is in retrospect. Like, you may at some point notice that, oh, gee, you know, I used to get upset by this and that, and now it's like, okay, yeah, I get upset every now and then. So in retrospect, you may notice that there is less and less unhappiness, and that the unhappiness that's arising has a lower magnitude or lower amplitude and a shorter duration. So if I understood your question correctly, the way you assess the unfolding of the space, meaning the understanding about consciousness, about your true nature, about the reality which perceives, is in the establishment, the longer and longer establishment, one could say, as the causeless peace of being.
What I was asking is, I think the step number one is to have the space in between so that you can actually do the inquiry.
Well, we are the space. I, awareness, whatever it is that perceives this perception right now, is that space. If you remove the superimposition that this I that perceives right now is Prem, what remains is just pure presence. So that space of pure presence is already on board. It's already there. The wide open sky is always there. I mean, we may look at the clouds and say, oh my God, there is no wide open sky. But that's from a limited perspective. But the wide open sky is always there, which is the reality which perceives right now. Consciousness, awareness is reality. It's not an experience in time and space. It is that in which time and space appear.
Yeah, so you're saying rather than identifying as a cloud, you're realizing that you're a sky?
Well, identifying as a cloud is in terms of the non-dual lingo, is believing and feeling that which perceives right now is the body-mind, is a male or a female, is located behind the eyes, or is sitting in the living room or the kitchen, or so that is the veil, that is the ignorance. So in the inquiry is, what evidence is there that the reality which perceives right now is arising from the brain? What evidence is there, or is located inside the head, for example? So what evidence is there? The inquiry into this evidence will reveal to you that in fact there is no evidence.
Yeah.
And as you come to there is no evidence, you come to what I refer to as not knowing.
Mhm.
In not knowing, the stage is open. The sky appears blue, but it is colorless, right?
Yeah. Okay. Like you're saying sky is colorless, but it appears blue. What do you mean?
I mean, there is an understanding that the blue, the color blue, is just the rendition of the instrument, the body-mind instrument. The body-mind instrument renders the infinite space, gives it a color, and that's the aspect of the mind. But I just wanted to point that out. But the aspect of ignorance is a little different in that ignorance perceives the reality of the world, of the universe, as a separate reality from the reality of body-mind. So in ignorance, there is multiple dual realities or multiple realities.
No, I understand what you're saying. Okay, it's interesting. So I have like two more questions. Actually, one is kind of related because now we are actually going to go a little more deep now. We're like going one layer deeper. But let's say my problem here. I think in the past, let's say I never did experiential investigation, first of all. Like a couple years back, I never did experiential investigation. All my investigation was conceptual. How can I ask the right questions and land up in another question and stuff like that? And when I hear to what the kind of stuff that you're saying to me, and I have a conceptual understanding of it, but experientially, I do not agree with the concept. There's like a dissonance there, if you notice.
Okay.
And so normally, I think many people, they just, including me, I guess, they just follow this non-dual teaching, and it's almost like another ego mechanism that's running behind. That's kind of just following your teachings almost dogmatically.
Yes.
Rather than investigating and finding it for yourself, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, obviously.
So that's a trap there, right?
Yeah. I mean, my interest, and I would say the interest of any genuine Advaita teacher, is not so much in spreading dogma or some conceptual jargon. It's about being experientially established in the causeless peace and happiness. So your question about what is the experiential aspect of the teaching? Now, the experiential aspect of the teaching, which is sometimes referred to Advaita or the direct path, is that it is through the understanding, but the understanding has an experiential aspect to it. So the understanding is that in this very moment, and that's experiential, this very moment, you have to come to this very moment experientially. There is a reality to this experience. And this reality is not conceptual, it's experiential. We cannot describe it. We cannot say it is blue, green, it is located here or there, whatever. It's the male or female or in the north or in the south. But although we cannot describe it phenomenally, experientially, I know that I am, and I know that I perceive. Whatever that I is, I know that there is perception, and that this perception is I perceive, not the table or the oak tree perceives. I perceive, and I am. I know I am. Whatever that means doesn't matter, but I know I am. I know that there is isness, there is something rather than nothing. And that is experiential, that is not conceptual. Would you agree?
No, I would agree. I think what came up in my mind is the process that you just laid down here, although straightforward, is very complicated. It's simple, what you're saying, but it's not easy to do. And what makes it not easy to do, at least in my experience, is that uh, so let's say I'm noticing an experiential quality to something, and let's say I have a sensation in my body that's unpleasant. All right, so I'm noticing this unpleasant sensation experientially. I'm noticing the quality of it. What kind of sensation is it? Pulsating, radiating, whatever. I'm noticing the quality of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I never noticed the beliefs that I have about the sensation that it's unpleasant. You notice a small distinction here.
Okay.
That I'm noticing this unpleasant sensation, which is experiential nature, but there's still this underlying belief that is going on, which makes this experience unpleasant in the first place.
Yes, yes.
So now it's a twofold process that I'm identifying my beliefs while noticing the experience, which I think is what makes this entire process so tricky.
You see, but I'm pointing in a different direction. Yes, what you are saying is that I'm perceiving a sensation, but I'm not perceiving, my affective attitude. Yeah, my bias towards that sensation. I agree. Right. And so, right, I see that. But what I'm pointing to is a little bit different. Okay. What I'm saying is that both the sensation and its affective quality, whether it's perceived or not, are appearances. They appear experientially. In whichever way they appear experientially to I awareness in this moment.
Yeah.
So I'm pointing the attention not in the direction of the feeling and the judgment that may be associated with the feeling. I'm pointing the attention to the reality which perceives both the feeling and the judgment about the feeling, or both the sensation and the judgment about the sensation. I'm pointing towards the source, that which right now perceives this perception. It's a different direction. You follow? And that direction, that pointing, I'm not pointing to a concept. I'm pointing to your experience of awareness, experientially, because that which you perceive may be a falsehood. You may right now, for example, be hallucinating. It's possible that you may be in a hallucinogenic state, and that therefore whatever you perceive may be completely hallucinogenic.
Sure.
It's possible. But although there is a possibility that which you perceive may be hallucinogenic, the fact that you perceive, there is a reality to that. In other words, if somebody tells you a lie, the fact that what you are hearing is a lie, and you don't know it maybe, or you know it or don't know it, the fact that you perceive the lie is the same fact that if you perceive a truth or you perceive an octree. You follow what I'm saying?
I'm following, yeah.
So the pointing is not so much towards the sensation and the judgment about the sensation. That's psychology, which is fine. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that in Advaita, the interest and the pointing is towards the experiential reality of consciousness.
Okay, so so what you're basically saying here is, so let's say there's an unpleasant sensation. You're saying the sensation is an appearance. The judgment I have, the sensation is an appearance, but the appearance is happening to someone, and that's consistent, which is what makes it a fact, which is what makes it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I'm saying is
the perception of the sensation, the perception of the appearances, the sensation, the judgments, the beliefs, whatever, is the truth.
Yes, what I'm saying is that both the sensation and the judgment about the sensation are appearances. They appear to and within that which is not an appearance. The reality of all appearances, in other words, the reality of the sensation and the judgment about the sensation, is the reality which perceives.
Mm-hmm.
So that which is perceived may appear in a certain way because of
Mm-hmm.
the mind, of the limitations of the mind. The various minds perceive various ways. Even the colors, some people perceive colors differently, whatever.
Yeah.
Although that which is perceived appears to be like this or like that, the reality of all appearances does not appear, is neither like this nor like that, but it is undeniable. It is the undeniable reality of consciousness, of awareness. And that is experiential. I'm not trying to sell a concept. I'm not trying to create a new philosophy, the philosophy of consciousness. I'm talking directly to our direct experience as consciousness or awareness.
So are you saying the appearance is falsehood? So are you saying there's an appearance and there's like a perceiver that's perceiving the appearance, and you're saying this appearance is the falsehood and the perceiver is what you're trying to put your attention to?
I'm not saying that the appearance is a falsehood. I'm just saying the appearance is an appearance. Is an appearance. I'm not.
What is different?
Also, what I'm saying is that appearance doesn't have an independent reality of its own. That the reality of the appearance is consciousness. And there is another teaching which I'm not going to go into right now, but about the zero distance between the appearance and its reality.
Mm-hmm.
But then we may go into that at another point in time. But what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that the appearance is a falsehood. I'm saying that the appearance is just an appearance. It has no independent reality from the reality which perceives it.
Yeah, I would agree.
A good example of that is in your night dream.
Yeah.
In your night dream, there are many appearances.
Yeah.
The reality of all these of all night dream appearances is the dreamer, the dreamer. Yeah. I wouldn't say that the pink flying elephant that appears in your night dream is a falsehood, but I would say it's an appearance. The reality of the pink flying elephant in your night dream is you, the dreamer, because it is you, the dreamer, out of you, the dreamer, that which is the reality of the dream. I don't like to use the term falsehood so much.
Okay.
Because it's too drastic.
Yeah, it is a bit drastic. Yeah. There's a person called Jiddu Krishnamurti. I don't know whether you know him or not. He's also very good with he says Jiddu Krishnamurti sir, he says getting into this it's an act of violence is what he says. It's like much more drastic than just falsehood. Like act of violence. I'm like, oh my god, it's like too drastic.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
So I think then now the real final question would then be, so now so what is the appearance of the I does not have an appearance, right? The way you're using I mean
yes, okay, yeah.
Does not have an appearance.
Reality is not an appearance, and yet all appearances
are part of reality.
Are reality itself appearing. It's like the dance of Shiva. Shakti. The dance of Shiva is the world, body, mind. So at the surface, the whole ocean is water. At the surface, there are waves, big waves, white foam, bubbles, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So this is the appearance. The reality of the appearance is water.
Okay, so it's almost like different forms of water, like how a ocean has different styles of waves. So appearance has different styles of, but much more multidimensional here.
Absolutely. God loves creativity, loves diversity, infinite colors. If you run the white light through a prism, you will see infinite colors.
What I'm struggling with right now is I get all this, but now the distinction between I and the appearance is becoming blurry.
Well, no, I mean, if you look in this very moment, I perceive this perception, right? That's your experience, right?
Yeah.
Now, what is the distance between I, whatever it is that perceives, and the perception?
So let's say you're an appearance to me. Okay. So
no. Let's not. I want you to stay with my question. Okay. But right now you're perceiving a perception. Yes, you agree or no?
Yeah, I would agree.
You're perceiving a perception.
Mm-hmm.
What is the distance between the reality that perceives and the perception?
There wouldn't be a distance, because when I'm perceiving the perception, it's like I am in the movie, right? It's like I am in the. So let's say I'm perceiving something.
I'm not asking you where you are. I'm asking a very, very, very specific question. I'm asking
distance.
Right now, you're perceiving a perception, yes or no?
Like a visual perception, you mean? Or like thoughts, feelings, like that?
Whatever. There is a perception, right? There is a perception right now.
Yeah, there is. True.
You perceive the perception, yes?
Yeah.
What is this? What is the distance between whatever it is that perceives the perception and the perception?
It depends, I guess. If it's like thoughts and some, there's very close distance, I would say. At least in my direct experience.
How close? Okay, let's take a thought. Is it like a 2 millimeters or 5 millimeters distance between the thought and I that perceives the thought?
The way I experience a thought is like I become a participant in the thought once I become aware of it.
You become what?
A participant in the thought.
Okay, let's take the thought. Today is Wednesday, and you said now you become participant. I don't understand.
No, okay. Like today's a thought is not.
Today's Wednesday, right? That's a thought.
Okay. Yeah.
What is the distance between the thought and that which perceives the thought?
Today is Wednesday. I feel a distance, but I don't know how much is it. I don't feel a distance.
What is the distance between the feeling and that which perceives the feeling?
Distance between the feeling. It's very hard to look at I and the feeling at the same time.
You're not answering my question.
Yeah, I can't see a distance.
Okay, that's an answer. I can see a distance. If you cannot see a distance, there is no distance. So you said that I'm having a little difficulty now reconciling I awareness and perceptions. I thought that's what I understood you to say. So therefore, I'm inviting you to the following exercise.
What
Yes,
is the distance?
there is I awareness. Obviously, I perceive this perception. I perceive the tree. I perceive a thought. I perceive the sensation of my feet on the ground. What is this? What is the separation or the distance between I meaning the reality that perceives, and the sensation? Zero distance. In other words, I and the world, I and the body, I and the mind are not two. I and perception are not two. In fact, one of the aspects of consciousness is that it perceives, which is referred to as knowingness.
So it's perceiving itself.
Consciousness is knowing. It perceives, it knows itself as I am. It knows that it is aware. I am aware that I am. I am aware that I'm aware. And it also perceives, I perceive the tree, I perceive the thought, I perceive the sensation, and they are not separate from myself. They arise within me. They arise from me. They arise in me. They're perceived by me, and they dissolve in me.
Damn, that's deep.
Okay, Prem.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay.
I think go on. I think it's a good time to end this right here, right? Because I don't think you can go any deeper. I think.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Enjoyed sharing and exploring with you.
It is really a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Okay, you're welcome.
Do you have any final words?
Not really. I mean, the whole inquiry is about happiness. It's not a theoretical discourse about Advaita and non-duality and this and that. No, it's about the experiential. It's an experiential. It's the experience of our true nature, of the freedom, of the causeless peace. That's what Advaita is about. It's about happiness, about peace, about freedom. It's about love. It's about understanding. And the proof is in the pudding. It's not sufficient to be interested in Advaita, just for some intellectual endeavor, but to understand that the teaching, whether you call it Advaita or whatever you call it, I mean, here it's a direct path. We say this is the direct path because it's pointing directly to your experience in this moment. It's not, there is a philosophy that its aim is to bring you more and more to your direct experience of the causeless peace. And this is the song I sing.
It's a beautiful song. I like it. I like it. I was first a bit skeptical. I'm like, non-dual teacher. Okay, I'm gonna be open, but I'm not gonna believe anyone just for the sake of believing them. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I don't refer to myself as a teacher, although in a way I am, but this doesn't really matter. I'm like just a friend.
Too old to care.
I share, because our people are interested. So we share the same love anyway. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it.
Cool. It's been an absolute pleasure. I loved our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will see you again, hopefully sometime in the future.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Thank you, Prem. Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.